everybody, my name is Valerie Greenwell. Welcome to Quilt Artistry. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about doing couching on the long arm. So I have here some Bernat blanket extra, and it is a very heavy kind of a chenille yarn. I don't know if they still call this yarn. But anyway, whatever it is, it's very thick, it's very fluffy, and it's very soft. But what I found with this is that it was a little bit too heavy to fit through the couching foot. So I'm going to be couching using the regular ruler foot that came with our machine. First, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of patterns that work best for doing couching on the long arm. What you want to look for when you're selecting a pattern is you want something that has a very open design. You want something that doesn't do a lot of backtracking and that you can blow up to a larger size. You want to have a lot of space in this so that as you're stitching this stuff down, you don't want it bunching up against itself or having to stitch over itself too much. If you do that, then you're going to run into a problem with bulk, and your machine may not handle that very well. So if we take a look at the screen here, I'll show you the patterns that I've selected for today. So I went to Sweet Dreams Quilt Studio, and I selected the Fairmont pattern set. And inside that pattern set, there's probably maybe somewhere between 12 and 15 different patterns. But I selected just 3 for this quilt that I wanted to make. And this is a big quilt. If you take a look at it on the frame here, this whole quilt is about 80 by 80, give or take. What I wanted was I wanted to be able to stitch these designs very large, very open, in what would be considered, really a bed-size quilt. I wanted to be able to blow these blocks out a great deal. So the size that I selected for these patterns is 19.5 inches per pattern. Normally we wouldn't stitch these patterns probably quite that large, but for couching it really works great. So you can look at these patterns and see that, let me blow this up on the screen a little bit. You can see this is a very, very big, very open pattern, and you can see where it comes down to the point. It'll come down to a point and then it'll stitch back up. But there's really not a great deal of backtracking in any one of these 3 patterns that I selected. So that is, for me, that I think that is what makes these patterns ideal for doing couching. Let's take a look at the quilt again, and I'm going to show you what I'm using on the frame. So I have a Minky back loaded, and this is the 90 inch wide back Minky. And I should say, if you have never quilted on Minky before, one of the things that you really want to remember is that you load it with the selvage on the left and the right sides. That will prevent the Minky from stretching or distorting as you roll the quilt and as you quilt. I have the Minky on the bottom. I have Quilter's Dream Select batting, Quilter's Dream Poly Select batting. And then this is Fabric Quilt Gray, Titanium Gray Sateen. This is a wide back fabric, and I've cut it down to 80 by 80. I really wanted to use a solid fabric so that the chenille yarn would really stand out on that. I really wanted to have a great contrast with that, really just a solid backing works well. So let's talk a little bit about this yarn and how we get it set up. So again, like I said, this is a very heavy, chenille. And what I like to do is pull a big old pile of this off, and I'll just kind of get a nice little puddle of this right over here in front of me. And you can see here, I have the standard ruler foot on. I am using a variegated thread that is very similar to my yarn that I'm using. And let me put this down here. This little tool, this is called a floss threader. It's actually a dental tool. You can get it where you buy toothbrushes and dental floss. But it's great because it has this nice big hoop, this big loop there, and it works well for this. You just take your chenille or your yarn and you put it right through the end of that little loop, and then you take the straight end and you can feed it right through the foot, just like that, and you pull it through, and then take your floss threader off, and now it is ready to quilt. So we're going to get it over here in position, and hang on, I'm on the wrong screen. Let me open up my proper quilting group. Okay, so now that I'm on the right screen, we're going to tell it to start. And it's going to move into position, and we pull at the bobbin thread just like normal. And what I'll do, where the cut end of this is, I kind of pull it. I only need about an inch off to the left-hand side, and then the big long strand is going off to the right. So I'm going to hit start. So I let it stitch a couple inches, and then I stop and I trim my my starting threads, and then I'll clip this close to the end. Something else that I forgot to mention, can you take a look at the numbers on the screen? I don't know if they'll show. No, they're not showing up. Yes, it is. Okay, so, no, the numbers, the speed is not showing up, but what I want to tell you is when you start this, you want to stitch this very, very slow. I have my machine set to 12 stitches per inch at a speed of 8. You want to be able to stitch this as slow as possible. One, so that you can anticipate the turn of the machine, so that you can follow right along with it. And two, you want it to be going slower in the event that you need to stop this quickly. You need to have a little bit of reaction time. So I found that a speed of 8 seems to work very well for that. So we're ready to stitch again. We're going to hit resume. And you can see it really just kind of pulls it the direction that it needs to go. And I try to feed it back to the machine, or back to the foot, in the direction that it's going to go. The rest of it really goes pretty easily. You just kind of want to follow along with it so that you can feed this in the right direction. You want to make sure that your lead yarn is out front. You don't want it laying down on the quilt top because you don't want it to accidentally get stitched down before it's supposed to. One of the other things that I like about these patterns is that they are so symmetrical. Once you've stitched one of these, you can really anticipate the direction of the machine and where it's going to go. And you can see that really just stitches down nicely. It's not going anywhere. And kids really love these couched quilts like this because it's tactile. It gives them something soft and fluffy to snuggle up against. So I like to pause it when I need to readjust my puddle or unspool a little bit more. That way, what you don't want your machine to have to pull or tug on this at all. This should not create any more additional work or on your machine at all. So you need to be prepared and have that ready to go and ready to feed. And if you need to stop it and pause it to readjust, then that's what you do. So this quilt that I'm working on right now has 16 blocks. They are 4 rows of 4. If you wanted to do a 12 block quilt at 19 and a half inches per block, then 1 skein of this yarn would be enough to do the entire quilt. I got all 12 rows done, and I wasn't even finished with the first skein yet. I love the way this stitches out. It's like magic watching it all lay down like that. When it's stitching backwards and it has to pull that backwards a little bit, I really like to try to make sure I've got this in a good position for it, so that it all gets stitched. Since this isn't the normal way that we do couching, this is not the native foot for this task, there's always a possibility that maybe the stitching may not grab every single piece of this. Normally with the regular couching foot, let me get the regular couching foot. So as you can see here, this couching foot has a very, very small hole. And although I could get this through there, it made the machine have to work harder to tug it through that little tiny hole. And I could hear, when I first tried it, I could hear the machine struggling, and that's not what I wanted. So we went to the standard ruler foot for this because it's so heavy. And this really turned out to work well. For the size of these blocks, at 19 and a half inches, because they're not really a very dense pattern at all, it takes about maybe 10 to 12 minutes to stitch each block, which is not really a whole lot. Get a little bit more here. Almost done. And that is really it for it. When it's finished, I just back it up a little bit and cut my thread, just like normal. Make sure I get the bobbin thread cut, and now I'm just going to snip right close to the edge of where that stitch ended, right there. And now, if I leave my chenille through the foot, I can pull it right over here, and then I'm ready to stitch the next block. And really, folks, that's all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and stitch these last 3 blocks. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you have any questions, send me a message and let me know. Thanks. Have a great day.